school all the way, or maybe you're pulling kids out of school. That will have its challenges. And I'm coming to you with my own experience, but also with the experience of so many parents that I've talked to over the years with questions and challenges and the different the opportunities that we face and the challenges. No one home is the same, and no one homeschool situation will be the same. So tonight, what we're going to talk about, we'll talk about 6 different areas. I got six different areas. The first one is we're going to review your reason for choosing to homeschool in the first place, and this will be relevant. This will be relevant to you. We're going to talk about when you've made the decision or before you've made the decision. Who is your support group going to be? A support group is fundamental to being able to sustain your choice and to and to being able to continue on and to help you when you kind of feel like you need to start research. We good?
It wouldn't let me do it horizontal, so I had to switch it, so I hope it's working. Is it not working? It says it's working. I don't know.
A bit different, but if you're pulling your kids out of school, what is the first thing? We'll talk about that. And then we're going to be talking about planning your time. This one, believe it or not, is going to be the key to your success. And it sounds like it's rather obvious, but we'll go over some at the bottom. It's absolutely not the first. Did a talk on that last month, and it is posted on our YouTube, so that will go a little bit more in depth. But I know some of you have done this for a while, or maybe some of you will recognize some of the conversations that we've had, and I'm kind of drawing on those conversations. The very key to holding you to that choice. We really want both spouses, the husband and the wife, the mom and the dad, to be making this choice together. But if you're in a situation, you need to close the door on this or on this idea, I would suggest that the homeschooling families. And if also, I don't want you to feel discouraged if you feel sometimes like you're in it alone. Get on page with your spouse or not by yourself. Put the date in it and start just jotting down the thoughts in your head. So why do you want to do this? What are some of your reasons? Some of the reasons could be things like you're finding that in the school system, the academics are lacking. We're seeing more and more social issues being taught, but we're not really seeing mathematics being taught. Maybe composition isn't a thing anymore, apparently. They're not gonna be taught the academics. They'll be taught some awfully interesting social issues, though. So maybe one of those reasons is the academic side of it. Maybe, like for me, a huge reason for homeschooling is that I don't have to love him and to know who he is. So for me, a huge reason for homeschooling is so that I can keep my children. The reason is because I've heard moms saying through that doubt of looking for support groups around extracurricular activities can be helpful as well. Like maybe it's a music or it's I know there's a community here that's thrown around a dance studio. My daughters go, and a lot of other people's daughters go to this dance studio, and it's actually become this really lovely community. So let yourself be surprised at where that support comes from. And don't be discouraged about those maybe closest to you who aren't necessarily your biggest fans. And the way you can help them to see what you're doing and to kind of come on side with what you're doing is maybe, like for the grandparents, ask them if they can help you with some of the driving. Because like, even if you put your kids in school, the extracurricular activities are onerous sometimes, like especially if you have like more than one kid, right? It's like who of you feels like a bus driver most days, right? So that can be a huge way to get your family involved that aren't necessarily supportive. Ask them, can you bring them to this sport, or can you bring them to that event? Or and as the surprising thing is, as they spend time around your child who is now kind of used to these generational interactions, like older people or younger people, the grandparents will find that there's something different about this child. This child can look me in the eye and have a decent conversation, and I enjoy his or her company. And so those are just little ways that you can help bring those relatives on side who may or may not be totally excited about your decision to homeschool. And the one big thing I'd like to caution you about as well, especially when you're going to find a homeschool support group. The homeschool parents, especially those of us who've done it for a little while, we are kind of opinionated. We know what we like, and we know why we like it. And so what can happen is if you go into a group, or especially if you have a lot of seasoned homeschool parents, they're going to come over and they're going to be like, oh, I know how you do this. You do this program, you do this thing, you add, put them all these lessons that, and you could just fine, totally. And that very well-meaning mother, that one who wants to help you so much, may or may not be right. Just because it works for that mother doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So don't feel that pressure to go, oh, hey, this is a lovely family. They have great success. I'm going to do everything that they do. Because that's exactly why you're homeschooling, because you're not going to be the same as everyone else. So the one thing to keep in mind, and maybe mark this down in your notebook, is that if you end up in a group, a support group, or even in a situation where you are allowing other people to tell you what to do and how to do it, then you will find out that you will not find your own identity as a homeschooling family. You will just be another one in the cog. And as long as you are able to think outside the box, look at your children and find things that work for them, you will slowly find your own identity. And then you too will become opinionated, because you will have the experience and the joy from what you've chosen to have those opinions, right? So don't allow, I'm not saying it won't work completely. I'm just saying be very cautious of subscribing completely to what another family does, because that may or may not work for you. And I can tell you, there's great friends in this room who do completely different approaches to homeschooling. Our kid, we've learned that because we're opinionated, because we're able to do different approaches, our kids are going to do really well. So that's a healthy community where you can have a lot of difference. Okay, so we've talked about write down your reasons, find your support group, and then what do you do? So now we have all these in this lined up. And I would even say for your oldest child who's kind of moving into first grade, even if they've never been in school, this would be true. For those of you who are maybe pulling children out of school, what is the first thing to do? Now this may be very surprising to you, but I would suggest that academically, the very first thing you should be doing is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the reason why I say that is because you're going from a schedule and habits of school to an environment of home, where you're going to have everyone in your home. Your schedule is going to slow down. It's going to look very different, and you need to, it's called de-school. You need to learn to break some of those habits. Think about this. Before, when your children went to school, a typical day may have looked like everyone gets up at 7, maybe even earlier, and you get dressed, make sure the lunches are packed and in the backpacks and the homework is done. Everyone has to eat breakfast, and mom's grabbing the keys, running toward the van, and the kids are sort of putting on the shoes and grabbing the bags, and everybody's getting in the vehicle. And finally, we're at the school. Kids are put in the school, and mom can go home and have and do whatever mom wants to do. At the end of the day or mid-afternoon, repeat. Go back to the school, pick up the children, get them home safely, feed them a snack, work with the homework, get the dinner done. Dad comes home, everybody's doing their thing, busy. You finally manage to get to bed. If you're lucky, you get a sports game in, because it's really important right now. You're on a right? Yeah. But for the most part, that's that schedule. It's like there's really firm deadlines, right? And the children have to be at certain places at certain times. And the children are in an environment all day with mostly children their own age. There may be a bit of an age gap, but it's going to be mostly children their own age, plus a few adults per capita. That's the norm in what you're coming out of. Now, that's necessary because in order for the system to function, that has to be. You have to be on time. You have to have your children in the environment. So I'm not criticizing that at all. I'm just saying that's maybe what you've experienced. But if you're going to homeschool, your schedule can change completely, because now in the mornings, only one person has to get up on time only one person has to make their lunch and get out the door, and that's usually the dad. The rest of you can actually stay in bed. And that may sound a little bit luxurious, but I'm telling you, it's actually, there's been a few studies done. One of the books that I've read, which is fascinating, was called Why We Sleep. And they've taken a look at the brains of youth and adults, and they found out that there really truly is a brain that's called a night owl, where you can't actually function during the day, and where your brain will turn on like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and it'll go till 2, 3 in the morning, and then you sleep, and you need to sleep through the morning. Like, that's a legit scientific fact, okay? So if you or your child is like that, imagine the freedom of being allowed to let your brain rest when it needs to rest and work when it needs to work, okay? So you're no longer tied to this schedule that has to be for the sake of all the people to be able to be educated in this way. You are now able to find out who you are, who your people are, and how they want to learn. And that's why we say don't do anything academically. Stay in bed in the mornings. Roll out of bed quietly as you're able, especially if you have little kids. The best thing in the world, as they roll out of bed, mama's in the living room with her cup of coffee, maybe in the wintertime a blanket, and they come and snuggle up on your lap, and you just have this little morning snuggle, and you, as the mom, connect with each one of your children. How are you? Did you have a good sleep? And you just give them that 5-10 minutes where they feel really loved, and then when you get on with your day, it's a completely different day. Everyone is relaxed, everyone is eating properly, you can put your clothes on, and there's no fighting, no friction. It's not every day. I'm not promising you no fighting, no friction. It will happen. But as a general rule, you'll find that initially you'll have these lovely habits that will start to develop. Now, make note of that. Watch, just kind of observe your children, observe how this is developing. And then take a period of time. And I'm saying academically do nothing, because academics really are like that much of your child's life, like a tiny, tiny bit of your child's life. Okay? As they move into the teenagers, academics will increase. It'll become more, and necessarily should. But if you're pulling them out of school as teenagers, it's still not, academics is still not enough of their life to compromise learning who they are, what their sleep patterns and what their learning patterns are. So you're still better off with a teenager to do nothing for a few months while you reset your internal clocks. And you're doing that to become a better family unit. Now, so some of the things you can do, so instead of doing academic things, some of the things you can do are things like acts of service in the community. We were talking about this at one of these events, and one of the moms mentioned that once a week they go to their church, which has a seniors event, and the kids all help out with serving and cleaning up, and these kids have a wonderful relationship with some of these seniors. These interactions are absolutely beautiful. So find community acts of service. Maybe it's at a soup kitchen, or maybe it's just maybe it's walking the dog, or whatever it may be. Try to find something to do in your community. Go to some of our local attractions. We live in one of the most informative places in Canada. Like, seriously, we've got telescopes at Simon Fraser University. We've got the Biodiversity Museum at UBC. Has anybody ever been there? Oh, yeah. Okay, Biodiversity Museum at UBC. You start looking around, you will find that we have some of the most incredible attractions and places to go they're fun, like the HR Macmillan Science Center in Vancouver. These places. So start finding these places. Go to these locations. Your child would learn more from a day at the Biodiversity Museum than they've learned an entire year at school in a science class. That's not an exaggeration. Yes?
Just as a new plug, the zoo has an indoor room now. It's like hands-on, handlers, bone, costume, like the whole show. And my kids no longer want animals. But AC in the summer and heat in the winter. So
right.
Super awesome.
Right. Okay. There you go. So our Fraser, Vancouver Zoo. Yeah. So we have these events. Go to these places, and as you're doing that, you're going to be resetting, and you're going to be building your relationships with each other. Take time in the car, and just wait for those discussions to start happening in the car. It's fantastic. I don't know what it is about driving, but the little little brains start going. Okay, so those are just a huge surprise. Very basic, but it's a thing. When you bring your children home, and they're in the home with you most of the time, because the reality is it's going to be home a lot, there are going to be a few bodies around you constantly. And they will be in your face, sitting in your chair on your lap. They will be eating loudly at the table. They will be doing glitter everywhere. And your floors will be messy and dirty. And your dishes will be piled up constantly. And your laundry will look like a Christmas tree. And you will feel like you have lost complete control of your home. Okay? That's okay. You'll figure it out. You'll sort it out. But, and even just recently I was talking with a homeschool mom, and she said, she commented on that. She's like, I just can't get used to, there's people around me all day. and it's true, that's gonna happen. So that may be something that we don't even really think about, right? It doesn't really consciously register that you're gonna have bodies around you constantly. So have a strategy to cope with that. Quiet time is a wonderful thing to do with your little children. Going for walks for teenagers, go for a walk. Get out of the house. Leave me alone. Those things are okay. So learn how to regulate your time and your space and communicate that to your children. You just have to say, you know, you guys, I need some space. And that's a very healthy thing to do, because on the other hand, your children are going to be around little bodies of varying ages constantly as well. So when you're in school, if you're 13, you're with 13-year-olds, and you don't have a pesky 2-year-old toddler who just went through your bedroom and tore out everything out of your closet. That's not going to happen in school. That's going to be a conflict that you will have to deal with. And that's actually really healthy, right? It's normal to be with intergenerational, like different ages. That's perfectly normal. So these are some challenges that are going to come up. But these are very healthy challenges, and they're very normal. Okay, so yeah, another thing you can do too for your own sanity is learn to assign chores. Do not do chores on rotation. Do not. It's like, you did the dishwasher yesterday. Okay, fine. He can do the dishwasher today because you did it. No, I'm switching it up. Because you, as the mom, you have a lot of different moving parts now, and you need to be able to keep track of it. So chore charts, they last for long periods of time, right? Have the children learn to do their own laundry. Yes.
Would you say that's good for like younger kids? Like I have a 6, 8, and 9-year-old. I feel like a whole month would be a really long time.
It's not though.
I call it the mastery program.
Yes.
They're mastering that, and then when they've mastered it, they get to go on.
Yeah.
My 6-year-old does the shoes and tidies up the bathroom.
Yeah, 3 to 5-year-olds clear the dishwasher always,
Yeah.
never changes.
Yeah.
Your next promotion is stacking it, but that's after 5 years old.
Amen. Yes.
3 to 5
I like
clear
that.
the dishwasher.
3 to 5 clearing the dishwasher, and then 5 to 7 learning how to bring all the laundry to the laundry machine. 7 to 9 washing it. So yeah. Yes.
So what ages to implement and when? Because I've got like 6, 3, and newborn. So I want to start the 6, but it's going to be like, why doesn't she have to do it? Yeah, no, it is, and I'm not going to face that for years.
Yeah.
So,
I
That my 3-year-old busy work while my older ones were doing something, so then they couldn't see that she's busy. And I had her
is whatever her job.
like a
Yeah.
little hand broom,
Yeah.
and she'd be walking around like,
Yeah.
sweeping my walls. And it's like, no, she's learning, she's
Yeah.
in training, but this is your job.
Yeah.
And then there was none of that. Well, but they don't have. Yeah, they do. They are currently holding a broom. That's what you did when you were 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
erasers, get walls
Oh,
get randomly
wow.
cleaned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately you will have to deal with it. Why do I have to do this? And
Yeah.
she's sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
So you ultimately will have to deal with that. And I think from very young age, we have to teach our children that you are responsible for your actions and for your behavior. And she is responsible for her behavior. Today, I've given you this task. I'm asking you to do this. And I need you to find it within yourself to do this the best you can possibly do, because it's going to be your good ultimately.
Yeah.
You're going to be the one who's going to learn how to be a good hard worker. Well, she's going to be a lazy bones because there she is being a lazy bones, right? But from his perspective, that's what it looks like, right? And that's fair. But they have to stop comparing themselves to other people because, like, I'm telling you, every one of us could look at someone else with a better job, a more high-paying job, with a nicer life and everything else, and we could look at that person and say, well, why does he or she get that life? Why can't I have that life, right? So at 3 years old, that starts. And it starts with looking at your sibling going, how come they have a better life than I do? So start right
And
away.
I would like to like let her know at 3, I never made you do these things.
Yeah.
That's
right?
another thing. That's a huge thing.
No, actually at 3, this is all appropriate. All of you don't remember because you were there, but this is all normal. You did it, your brother's doing it, whatever. I have a 13-year-old, just to make you feel better, who thinks that why does he get to have more than his 6-year-old sister?
Right, but the flip side is also true, as I'm finding as my kids head into teenage years. The oldest girl, she's getting to have certain privileges.
And that's what we've had to say. I said, okay, do you want to act like her where you can't, like, she has to watch constantly on the street? Do you like going to 7-Eleven?
Yeah, yeah, but it's like, so the older ones, they start to have these privileges. They're invited to do certain things with friends, or they're invited to go to certain events. And the younger ones are like, well, why did you get to go there? It's like, well, you know what? When you were 3 and she was 6, she learned how to load the dishwasher, and she's been loading the dishwasher for 5 years. You've been doing it for 3 years.
We literally quote that in our house.
Yes, yes. So helping them to see perspective, and then empowering them to see that ultimately you're going to make the decision for yourself, and how you respond is going to be the thing that makes you the better person. Or you're going to have the most joy because you've decided you're just going to do this job because you're called to do this job, and you're going to do it with great joy, right? Be, as someone said to me recently, be you, because everybody else is taken. So that's a huge thing to teach them, those chores. And there was one more thing I was going to put out here, but I don't remember what it was, so we're going to move on. Sorry. No, that's fine.
Yeah, it was probably character development because we're working on the character with the chores. This is another huge highlight.
Yes, okay, and that's a huge thing too. So character development in the younger years is actually what you're doing. You're not actually educating them academically. I would say even up to 8, 9 years old. You are teaching them to be responsible, to make their beds, to brush their teeth, to do chores around the house, to pick up after themselves, because those are the basic disciplines of life. We all know the story of the teenagers who can't get out of bed on time, and when they do their disheveled, and then they don't want to do their schoolwork because they stay up too late, and all. We know that teenager, right? Well, you know why that's happening? Because their mom didn't make them empty the dishwasher consistently. So if you can teach your children to be responsible and to cultivate daily habits, then when they become teenagers, they're going to be getting up, putting their clothes on, making the bed, brushing their teeth, loading the dishwasher, and so going, let's get at school. Because that's the next thing, right? And I'm seeing this happen in my own household. Is all those habits, those character traits that we've been working so hard on when we were little, and I thought I would never get out of it. There's tiny glimmers coming out in these teenagers where I'm starting to see, hey, they're taking responsibility for who they are. They're seeing the fruit of cleaning their room because other sibling isn't, and that makes me really cranky because I have to walk by and see that horrible mess all the time. I'm like, okay, again, character development, not your problem, right? So yeah, so think about those younger years again as you're not worried about academics. Well, you are. It's like don't forget the teaching how to read. They do kind of, and we each learn a few things, but that's your opportunity to teach habit. Okay, and that moves us right into the next section that I wanted to talk about, which is planning your time. We've talked about this before, but the big thing I want to communicate here is, as we talked about, so when you're putting as many people, like, I don't know, if you have 2 children, 4 children, 6 children, this is a lot of people in one space at the same time. You need to look at your timeline, and you need to plan, what are you going to do? Now, as I said initially, don't do anything, and that's true. But what you're doing while you're doing nothing is you're actually moving toward a routine that your family, that will be healthy for your family, okay? So you may notice, hey, kid over here is consistently getting up at 7 in the morning and playing. Well, kid over here is staying in bed till 10. But this child over here pulls out the math and science at like 9 p.m. and cruises until 1. So study your children. Learn them. Learn who they are. And that will help you start planning your schedule. you can start even for yourself as the parents, as the mom and the dad. Start with yourself. Get your calendar out and start with the time that you have. Who here knows how many hours we have in a day? How many?
Not enough.
Not enough, right? We have 24 hours, okay? Depending on how much sleep you need, I need probably 10 hours of sleep a day. That leaves me with 14 hours, okay? We need to plan for cleaning up the house. How many hours is that gonna take? We need to plan for making sure we take time to sit and do the cuddles with the big kids and the little kids. Do not forget to do the cuddles, the hugs, the looking into your child's eyes. How are you? Did you have a good day? That's what they call, Gordon Neufeld does some great work on this. He calls that collecting your child. Because they need to look you in the eye, they need to be grounded, they need to know someone loves me, someone cares. So collect your child. That's going to take time. It's really important time, okay? So once you've kind of figured that out, what do you have left? Maybe 4 hours in a day? And those are the hours you have to homeschool, to do academic studies. It's going to be different for different families. And that might be shocking to you. It's like, what? How do I get it all done in 4 hours? Well, you're not going to be doing all the teaching yourself. You're not going to be having to do like the class and the transition between classes. It's not going to happen. They're going to try. Trust me, they're going to try. But I had to go to the bathroom, and then I needed a drink of water, and then I went to grab a snack. And it's like, no, child, you can just pull your book out. That's all the transition we need here at home. So figure those things out. And also, we'll get into that when we choose curriculum, when we talk about choosing curriculum. So once you kind of have an idea of what your day looks like, look at your week. What does your week look like? Where are your extracurriculars? What do you do with the different days? So for us, on Sunday's our day of rest. It's no extracurriculars, no working, no nothing. If we're lucky, we get to sit at home and have a downtime. We go to church every week. That's extremely important to us. And then we have our afternoon. Maybe we have friends. Maybe we eat together with some other family. But Sundays, that's off the table. No scheduling. Okay, that gives us 6 days. So when are your extracurriculars happening? When are you going to do your grocery shopping? When are you going to sit down and do your reconnect with your spouse time, date night? When are you going to do these things? So then plan your week. Some days are going to be much busier than others, and maybe that works for you. Maybe you say on this day all the activities happen. On this day, nothing. But plan out your week. So you're planning out your day, you're planning out your week, and you get into a rhythm eventually. Now I'm gonna, for those of you who haven't heard me say this before, I might shock you a little bit. But you actually don't need to start school on September 1st. You do not need to do that. Interesting fact, our school calendar is actually based on the agricultural calendar. It used to be that the community was largely made up of farmers, and the kids were needed on the farm, and so that's why we have this large summer break where kids are often helping with the farms and harvesting and with the animals and all these things. Fall time comes and okay, it's time, kids come back to school again. So I personally think that needs to be reconsidered, but I'm not going to take that on right now. For our own school, for our own family, the way we do it is we actually study for 3 months, and we take 1 full month off. And we do that year round. 3 months on, 1 month off. And it may surprise you to learn that it's actually exactly the same amount of time that the schools are in and studying and off, because schools actually get 3 months off, right? 2 in the summer and 2 breaks. But it's arranged in an even way. And so my mama brain can handle 3 months of schooling and 1 month of not caring about anything. Well, that's not actually true. So, and then what we do, so if we do a 3 month, then we go from September, October, November, and then we take all of December off. And then what I'll do is intentionally find ways to focus on Lent and Christmas. That way we're not doing our academic stuff, but we're actually doing something that's important to us. And then we study January, February, March, and what usually happens in April, it kind of moves a little bit. What happens in April? Easter. So we take April and we take time to focus on Easter. We study May, June, July, and take off August as our summer month. It may surprise you to know. So I was really nervous when we first did this. The first month was it was tough. I was scared. It was like, no school, not doing school. Nobody's doing school. I had to deal with myself. I was so afraid that my kids were going to miss out. But the thing is, it turned out that was just long enough for them to actually digest what they had learned. So all the history that they had learned, all the different concepts in math or science, they were doing that in playtime during that 1 month off. Okay, it was as if they were digesting what they had learned. And then when we came back again to school for January, they were ready for it, right? So by the end of the month, they were kind of like, "Are we still do school, right, Mom? Haven't opened my-" I know some we'll do 6 weeks. About what we're doing is that we usually get everything done in the first 2 semesters. Right? So technically, we have 3 semesters. We get most of our stuff done in the first 2 semesters. And I find we're heading into the 3rd semester, like even this year, they finished all their grammar, they finished their writing classes, they finished their math. Like we've got 3 more months of studying. I'm like, what are we gonna do? So it's fantastic. So this is the month where I can choose all those fun things, those curriculums that I really want to do, but I never will get around to. Well, here we go. Or not. So plan your time wisely, be open-minded about how it's going to work, and make sure it addresses your children's needs, who they are, okay? And then 2 more part we have for time. Okay, not too bad. Choosing curriculum. Now this is my favorite. Okay, so start slowly. The biggest mistake I see that is made is you've got everything done, you're refreshed, you're ready, your schedule is good, you're excited. Justifiably so, it's very exciting, very exciting. But do not overbuy. I'm telling you this as someone who sells curriculum, the worst salesman in the whole world. Do not overbuy, okay? You do not need to cover every single subject in the first year or even semester. You do not need to cover absolutely every single book that you think is interesting and wonderful to do. You don't even know yet what your student's capacity is for doing academic study. I'm telling you, it has a broad range. Some kids, they're gonna move along at a steady and a slow pace, and they're gonna get it, and they're gonna master certain things, and other things are just not gonna go there, and that's okay. And then you have other kids, they're gonna be gobbling this stuff up faster than you can feed it. I have a daughter who reads, she's here quite a lot in this bookstore. Her biggest complaint in life is that she doesn't have a book to read. She's here every single day. She reads a book a day, pretty much. So you're gonna have that student too, where you're just like, sorry, but like you're gonna have to start rereading or something. I don't know. Figure it out. So keep that in mind, okay? So keep in mind, as you start, you're gonna be learning a whole new thing. Be gentle on yourself as the mama. So maybe your child can handle all of that academic study, but maybe you as the mama, you can't figure it all out yet. You haven't sorted the scene. You haven't figured out how the curriculums go together. It's okay. Just take your time. The less is more, okay? It's better to do a little bit of the important stuff, of the rich stuff, than it is to try to cover it all and actually get nothing, right? It's like, well, we read all these 5 books, and I think they were about King Arthur there. I think maybe this one was about, like, what was the point of that? Read one book and know what it says. So be gentle on yourself. And then don't forget to include books. So education isn't just a curriculum. It's not just this program or this program. It's actually reading books. We just read good books. And include lots of books. And then, and ultimately, so start with like the 2 basic subjects. The 2 basic ones are like language, which for a younger child is learning how to read, and then reading well, so reading a lot to them, and then having them a little bit later on, like I say later on by like age 9 or 10, like make sure it's later on, do writing composition and grammar. Don't ask a 6-year-old to do writing composition. Now, like they may want to, if they want to, never hold a child back, but do not formally impose a writing program on a 6-year-old child. That's they don't have anything to write. Some of them might, but for some of them it's like, oh, it was fun. So wait until they're older, like 9 or 10 years old. Wait until they've had a little bit of experience. And they've read a lot of books because you're going to be reading to them. You're going to be reading fairy tales and poetry and historical fiction and fantasy. You're going to be reading a lot to them. And what that's doing is that's filling it up. So by the time, and then you need to be able to understand and do numbers. These are the 2 primary programs. Science. What is science? When it comes to the order of science stand, it's second. Okay, it's down here. Not that science isn't important. It's very important. But if you don't know how to math, and if you can't communicate, it doesn't really matter what you know about science in your head. You can't get it out, okay? The other thing is, for young children, they're interested in the world around them. That's science, right? Going to see, I don't know if you've ever had butterfly larvae kits. You can buy these and you can watch these butterflies hatch. Or like if you go to a farm and you watch these chickens laying on their eggs and as they hatch these chicks. This is science, and this is child science. We don't need to get into biology or chemistry or any of that until high school, okay? Until they're really going to, okay, but why do the leaves on the tree change color, right? And then we start talking about photosynthesis and the biology of what's happening, because now they care. So be gentle on yourself. Start with the 2 most important subjects, even in high school, and then gently add in more. Once you get good at those 2, we figure out, okay, we got 4 hours. We're taking 3 hours to do math and 1 hour to do writing. Yay us. Suddenly you're like, we're taking an hour each. We got 2 hours here. What are we gonna do? And then you add something in, okay? Trust me, your relationships will be better. The child will learn better. There will be less frustration. And you just don't have to do it all. And you can always come to me and I'll help you figure out the right curriculum. Okay, and then finally, my favorite subject, what about socialization? As I said earlier, I was homeschooled. And as you can tell, I'm a horribly unsocialized, awkward person. So I think to start with, we need to define this term socialization. What does it mean? It means a person's ability to interact with the society around them, people around them, the culture around them, and how does that work? Can we do that well, or is it awkward? And so what does that interaction look like? And how do we teach our children to be interacting with the culture around them? Well, if I look at what's happening in the schools, I'm not keen to have my children learn to interact with only their age groups and their peers. I'm not keen to have my girls learn how to dress just so and wear the right clothes and exclude those girls who can't afford it or who aren't interested. I'm not interested in that kind of socialization, because let's be clear, that is socialization. They're not wrong, okay? On the other hand, socialization is teaching your children to be respectful to their elders, to be able to go out into society and to discuss ideas whether they agree with those ideas or not, and do that in a respectful way. So these are the different sides of socialization. So when somebody is saying to you, you're going to homeschool? What about socialization? What they're saying is, you're not going to teach your child how to be just like all the other children out there. You're going to teach your child how to actually be who they're meant to be. How dare you? But that's what that they're right. That is what we want. And that's also why socialization comes up so often, is because they're right. We're going to teach our children how to interact with the world around them. We're going to give them the knowledge that they need to be able to discuss and debate certain ideas. We're going to be able to give them the intelligence to be able to handle a debate or an argument on an issue that they may find deeply offensive, but they're not going to get emotional about it. So they'll actually make tracks. So yeah, the question is, what about socialization? And for me, that is a huge reason why I homeschool. I want my children to be sociable, and to be intelligent, and to be able to be the next leaders of our society. I don't want them to be just like everyone else. And with that, I'm going to say, do you have any questions?
Can I add just your one thing that has really helped me so much?
Go for it.
Homeschooling,
Yes.
is your EZ+1 philosophy.
Okay.
Honestly,
That's not original. That's not
okay,
mine.
well still, we'll credit you for right now. But it has really helped on the days that are so like, or when I want to incorporate something and it feels so overwhelming, just going, wait, we're gonna do easy plus one. I want to incorporate 5, but we're gonna actually just choose the one.
Yeah.
Has really helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that idea, that comes from a guy named Andrew Pudua, and he's with the Institute for Excellence in Writing, excellent writing program. But I would say, listen to Andrew at every chance you have. He's full of wisdom on so many different things. And his whole program, his whole writing program is based on this philosophy of easy plus one, right? So, and you, this is the one thing I was gonna say back when we were talking about chores. You think about your child and you say empty the dishwasher, and the child opens the dishwasher, they've literally never seen that many dishes before, they don't know what your kitchen looks like. That is one of the most overwhelming things you can tell a 6-year-old, right? So they shut right down.
Puddle on the floor.
Right. So what would easy plus one look like?
The bowls.
Yeah. You open the dishwasher and you pull out a tray and you say to your child, look, this is called cutlery. These are like forks and knives and spoons. And you pull out the drawer and say, look, this is where they belong. Will you take every one of these from the dishwasher and will you put them in the proper slot in the drawer over here? And that child knows exactly what you're talking about and they're completely capable of doing that, right? They complete the task and you're like, great, okay, let's take a look. These are the bowls and they go over here. And so what you're doing is you're doing an easy plus one program.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, your goal is to have them empty the dishwasher fluently and without argument. But if you don't break it down for them, it's not fair.
Yeah.
But that's true for us about anything, about homeschooling. If we don't break it down for ourselves and we start with something if we don't start with something very difficult, we're essentially saying to ourselves, like, I'm gonna homeschool, somebody's just opened a dishwasher and said to you, unload that. Like, that's overwhelming, right?
Yeah,
So break it down.
And I think it comes down to like being disciplined enough to do it. Like, I just don't want them to clean their room because it takes me an hour and a half and a whole bunch of whining, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we'll try that this week, you know? So just disciplining myself to pick a thing and make it the thing, right? But
Yes, Jessica.
Oh, I was just gonna say in line with this conversation, I think it's Sonia Schaefer with Simply Charlotte Mason.
Yes.
She has a great YouTube video about talking about developing habits, and I think it's like 5 steps. It's like, you watch me, I'm not gonna quote them properly right now, but like, I do it and you do it with me, you do it and I watch you, and then you do it by yourself, and there's one other one.
yeah.
But, but in that video, something she said that like blew my mind was like, she's like, if you teach your child to clean the bathroom, just teach them to clean the sink. They don't
That's
have
right.
to clean the toilet
Yeah.
and the tub. You don't have to think about like bathroom, the whole thing. So anyways,
Yeah.
that always, that like changed my thoughts about a lot of things, because I always thought it had to be the whole job perfectly all the time.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. But think about it from somebody, like if you think about it from like, say somebody from a foreign country would come into your house, would you say to that person, clean the bathroom? We wouldn't. And so just because we know our children doesn't mean that they know how to do that, right? We still have to break it down for them. Just try enter into what their experience.
True story.
Yes.
I know someone who's international student took the shower head and washed the wall.
There you go.
Because they have tile in their country.
Right.
So just off that one.
Right, so like, you so save yourself time, teach your child the steps. Did you have something?
Well, I have a bit of, well, I guess the question, but I pulled my son out recently from grade 5, and I have a daughter who's in grade 2, but she's still in school. And it's going really well right now at home, and obviously I've taken some notes and there's things I'll be tweaking. But I'm kind of at a crossroads where I'm like, she wants to be home with mom, but then she likes being there, but she's also liking to, like, I kind of want to be at home, but I kind of want, so I'm really kind of, I feel like I'm kind of torn.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, do you have any insight or any, like, feedback, or is anybody else experiencing experiencing this? Because I feel like I'm like, I feel bad because he's with me all the time, and I'm like, okay, and I get to drop off her at school,
Yeah.
but then it's mom and it's our time going there, but then it's our time coming home too.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I feel I'm kind of just like, you're still being fed to the wolves, and Edwin, my son's at home with me, and I
Yeah.
feel, you know,
But you're projecting that feeling onto her, and she's sensing that.
I think so.
So this is very common, especially with, so when you first pull your kids out of school, or when you split it like that, your feelings are gonna be, you're gonna be doing your very best, and I know you are,
Yeah.
to be positive and encouraging to her. but everything you just said, she knows that.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, if you can, and if she wants to be home, take her out of school.
Just try it,
Right,
yeah.
right away, just take her out.
Yeah.
And just do the deschooling for a while. Now, I often hear when parents take their kids out of school, the kids are, like, sometimes they don't want that. They're like, oh, but I miss my friends, I wanted this or that. No, that's largely because that's the only reality they know,
Yeah.
right? So that's where this deschooling becomes extremely important, because what you're doing is you're showing them the world the way it really is.
Right.
Right?
So then that's the other thing with like the whole deschooling thing. I work full time. My husband works too. So I have a decent job where I can make my schedule and be home when I need to, and then I can go out to sites and come back. But I feel like my deschooling would be like, okay, like I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, it's like, okay, they can't just sit on a tablet or a TV, and they're like, this is the coolest, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to just be like, oh, and then by the way, homeschool, now we're gonna go back into this. So I have to have my son doing something right now, because it's not actually as like structured, and there's like, we're having those really good moments together.
Yeah.
But I can't do the full, okay, like shut down. I feel like I can't, but maybe because I don't know any different. So I'm kind of like, when you say that, I'm like, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really hard.
It is very hard.
It's like breaking a bad habit, but and like when you're talking about like the rat race, getting ready in the morning, going here, and I'm like, yeah, it's not great, and I'm still half doing it because she's at school.
Yes. So this is something maybe to think about too. So like the working, like you working, your husband working, I know this. I work as well. So trying to fit this all in as a working mom, it's a challenge. But again, so think about what would it be like if you didn't have to bring her to school at all. If that whole part was out of the picture.
That'd be great.
So it would adjust your time dramatically.
Yeah.
And so how could you adjust your work schedule? What would it look like for your work if suddenly you had a kind of a freer time at home? And then this is where I would say look towards your support community. Is there like a family that would take them for a couple hours a day, or do you have like extended family that would come in, like a grandparent? And then think of active things for them to do. Like I think board games can be extremely educational. So maybe so see if you can find someone to come in and help you. I really think like when it comes to when you're working and you're homeschooling, you really need that community of support around you. Yeah. And just be bold and ask, right? Ask for help. Okay. And then maybe even like online classes. I'm a huge fan of online classes. Because we don't actually have to teach everything. Yeah. And with some of the classes out there, we have access to the best teachers and the best curriculum out there. So why would we try to, figure something out on our own? We're already working. We have to have time commitments towards that. So maybe there's an online class or an online group or a book club or a study that they could be a part of. Right. Okay. During those times.
And also to add to, I took my kids out when they were in 3rd grade, 5th and 7th.
So similar to me.
And I only took them out because my oldest was really struggling. Yeah. And my middle one was, not really struggling academically, but there were school issues. My youngest loved school. And I sat them down and I'm like, do you want to homeschool? And my youngest was kind of like, let's homeschool. And the other two were kind of like, yeah, let's do this. And she and you know what? All three, but we've done this for 3 years now. Yeah. All of them say they'd never go back. Never go back. There's no regrets. None of them are like, oh, I missed out. None of them feel that way. Because once you've been out of it and you've experienced the freedom of homeschool, nobody wants to go back to sitting in a classroom at a desk, not being able to talk. Yeah. Like, and that was my youngest.
Would you say there is a learning period of like how to be bored and entertain yourself, or how to
No,
get along
because
with
I'd already
your
had
siblings?
that in my.
They already had that.
Yeah,
going
I had a
on.
lot of that. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
bored. Oh, I have some chores.
Oh, I'm not bored anymore.
Boredom.
Just
Well,
so
no,
we
that's
all
what I'm
know.
saying, like just allowing space for that too. Right?
Yes, boredom is
Watching-
healthy. Yes, very
And watching
healthy.
my friend who has 4 children who homeschools, who doesn't do screens, like audiobooks.
Yes.
Her son can do audiobooks in Lego for like 4 hours.
Learn to do more.
Yeah, but like, and my son really enjoys audiobooks in Lego too, and it's like when he's stressed out, if he just needs a little him time, it like occupies his brain enough that he can kind of just, and he's learning literature without anyone trying to do anything. Yeah. So, there are other ways to like play intelligently.
When we deschooled, for us it was a lot of books. We just read books. There was audiobooks if I couldn't read them. So like to fill the time, it wasn't necessarily that we did nothing. We did constructive family activities and not necessarily with me.
Right.
Sometimes it was like, oh hey, I found this really great cardboard castle. Do you guys want to put this together? And I mean that's just the personal activity that has that group up. Like, and sometimes we didn't finish it the first time, but yeah, like we didn't necessarily not doing anything. Nothing academic.
Over here. I think like I told my son he was in grade 4, his son is similar age. And the one thing I think is lots of things is I have to hate school, like what I think I would be at home. Yeah. But it can be whatever. So if you are a Monday to Friday worker and Tuesdays and Saturdays work better for learning, that's what can be earned. Like that doesn't happen. And you know, and there's like again, like in that time period where my kids drop my kid off at 8, I pick them up at 6 or at 3, so that's like 6 hours. They have to be, you know, they do that at grade 1. Yeah. So naturally they have 6 hours at home, and you don't.
We don't.
Like we're now in we're going to grade 7, and we have a different philosophy, but it's like not even an hour a day that we learn. Yeah. But at the same time, we're learning all the time, and he's a huge screen person, and I know there's like two different camps on that, but it's amazing how much they can learn on screens and things like that. So there's that challenge of finding, you know, like maybe not just mindless YouTube and you know,
for sure.
but at the same time, there's lots of benefits from that, or Minecraft, or you know, there's lots of different ways of looking at that.
Well, and that's why I can't stress enough. Like you need to take the time to figure out what is going to work for your family. Like maybe they would be great with audiobooks. Maybe, or maybe they just need books. Maybe they need to go to the library. Maybe you put them together and you say, here's what I expect from you while I'm at work for a few hours, and maybe you'll actually get some really great results out of it. So that's the key, is like just come at it with an open mind, be flexible, and see what comes out of it. And I almost guarantee you, something will come out that you didn't even see. Right. Yeah. And also, when you're going to grow into this, the first year's not going to look like at all. Yeah. Neither will the second.
I'm on week 3 and I'm like,
You're not even great.
You're
awesome. You got time. You got time.
It did take a year.
it did or
It did take a year for my kids, and they were 2 and grade 1 and or kindergarten. It took a full year for them to not even tell me that I was doing it wrong. Yeah, which is hilarious. And so I think just give yourself so much grace and space. Yeah, it's not, and I promise you, like some of them, they still have their challenges. I've tried to hold them out, but the other ones, they have not lacked in any way in that year.
Getting back to your comment?
Yeah, I mean, graduating too late.
So it's taken you 7 years.
17.
17 years. Your youngest is graduating, and you're here at the new homeschooler. Thank you for coming.
But I would say, yeah, I mean, you have to find what your priorities and what's going to work, and that's a big part of the deschooling period, and then kind of ramping up is figuring out what your family priorities are, and taking as much input as you can from other homeschoolers, and then seeing what works for you and what doesn't, because honestly, we felt really bad at the beginning, Sax and math.
Yeah.
All our principals Sax and math, and we thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
And so we felt like bad homeschoolers, and we had to find what worked for us. Or honestly, listening to all you guys who like figured out the whole chore and laundry thing, like okay, I just want to hang my head in shame. It never worked for us, and our 17-year-old still doesn't do his own laundry. So, but I think we have to figure out what your priorities are and how it's going to work for you, and that just wasn't one of our priorities. That's not part of how we were going to roll, right?
Yeah.
If it is, that's awesome, and kudos to anyone who takes work. It's not us, and so you kind of have to figure out what's going to work for you, and yeah. So, and then the only other thing I would say is part of that prioritizing is just you're the parent, right? So figure out if homeschooling is a priority for you. Like when we moved from Saskatchewan to here, we didn't ask our kids, oh, Dad got moved, like had a new job in BC, like oh, do you want to move? No, it's like we're moving, and they got used to it. And to me, homeschooling was also one of those decisions. It's like we started homeschooling when our oldest was in grade 4, and this is what we do. Like it wasn't really a choice for our kids. It's like going to church for our family isn't a choice that our kids get input on lots of things, but certain things, if you really believe in it and it's a priority, then yeah, do it. Because you're raising your kid.
You're the parent,
Yeah.
not the friend. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, to what she's saying, and I think it's actually really neat to hear what you're saying after your experience, because even though we're talking about all these tips and these ideas, ultimately, at the end of their school year, they will see the children and they will be educated in a way that was important for our family. The emphasis that you show will see and try to impress upon them, and they will be that person, right? Another thing I like to say too is that your children will be a product of your circumstance, right? So if you are a farming family and you have your children involved in the farm all the time, chances are your children will be in agriculture. It's not likely that your child is going to move off to Hong Kong and become an astrophysicist in a lab somewhere facing some sort of lawsuit, right? That's not, it's not that that couldn't happen, but like, let's be realistic, right? Allow your child to be the product of your environment. Yes.
I'm the newbie. Well, thank you. So we're pulling my oldest out of grade 3. Well, he'll be going to 4, and then currently our youngest is in kindergarten. And I had to take the deal with a little bit of stuff. But one of the questions I have is, I don't know. I was a little bit homeschooled growing up because I had to work in today. And I don't get it, and I'm going to say, I don't think it's fondest memories. So, like, I'm a little bit nervous about the whole dynamic of, like, being your mom, and how do you, like, also do, you know, like, how do they kind of respect you as a teacher as well? And, like, you know, I don't know what my kids would be like if I had met them before, but I'm curious, because I don't think I understand respect.
You know, I think it was pretty difficult, a bit headstrong, but, so a bit nervous. But yeah, no, I don't know how that, because, you know, at school, there's like, oh, you know, the teacher, you know, I think my oldest is very much like that, but I don't know pretty too much of the, smart aleck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so you are going to have to grow a bit of a callus toward a child who may actually at first be a little bit disrespectful because how could you know mom? Okay, do not respond the way they want you to. Let them get it out of their system, let them get it out, it's not personal, right?
Yeah.
And while that's happening, build your relationship with the child. What is the most important thing in homeschooling? What the number one most important thing, never compromise it, your relationship with your child. Okay? Your child will have respect for you as the mother, and as the mother, as you say, like we were just hearing, you're going to stay home and do talk from home, and I'm going to help you work through this program. And don't be nervous, go to your room, have a little breakdowns if you need to, but give that child time to see school and be the teacher, because you're not the teacher, you're the mom.
Yeah.
And you never will be their teacher. You will be teaching them and helping them to learn, but you're not the teacher. You don't hold the same role. That's nothing the same.
Exactly, and that's why that one of my big friends, who's our oldest, like absolutely loves school, and it like broke his heart that we were pulling him out, and that was so hard because like he's literally like the cookie cutter that they created the school system around.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
And so he loves it.
Yeah.
And so like when we told him, he like went and cried in the room for hours and hours and hours, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what is he doing? But we really feel like this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why the whole like he's like, oh, you're gonna be able to teach me. You know you're gonna teach her. Like,
Yeah, it's a long term. Let him read. Let him go through that. Allow him to express those things. Because he's not saying that to you in a way that's like you personally.
Oh no.
Yeah. Right. So just let him come. Let him read. Let him cry. And empathize with it. Like, I'm really sorry, I know you love school. Right. All these things. Let that come out. But again, while you're doing that, through your deschooling, you're showing him the alternative, right? And that will help him too, because he's thinking school at home. That's not what homeschooling is.
Yeah, because he's thinking no friends.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. So get your support group, make sure you have them.
We're very social as well. So that's the thing where we're like, I'm like,
yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. But yeah.
that's the whole purpose of this homeschooling period. There can be all kinds of emotions. There can be grief, there can be like nervousness, there can be fear, there can be anger, there can be elation, right? Talk to these emotions. And then figure out who he is. How is he gonna learn? This is one of the reasons that I love online classes. So I do have my girls in my academy online, they live online, all around the world. But what happens is they actually do have teachers and they are accountable to someone else to do their schoolwork. So that may be an option, maybe try to find something to teach them how to do it. But typically in homeschool doesn't mean exactly. So we have that community connection. There you go. And so that's what we brought in that example of the idea that yeah. So what are you going to do? Yeah.
That's going to be one of the most important times as well, because you're going to have to go back to him and say, you know what, I messed up, I'm really sorry, and showing him that humility and admitting and like, yeah, I did this, I shouldn't have, that was wrong, I'm really sorry. That will help grow his respect for you, right? It's when you're like, I got this, I'm gonna do this, I don't really care what's happening, you like white knuckling through this whole thing. He knows whether you're good at it or not, right? And so be vulnerable, admit your mistakes. When you make mistakes, don't beat yourself up about that, because that is a moment where you're going to grow together.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I just add that I also do character days? So those days that are like so child has hunkered down, and now you must also hunker down. Okay, this is gonna, and they do the one sentence. You can walk away and go, that was great today, and tomorrow will be a new day.
Yes.
There
That's
are just
so
those days
true.
that are character days.
Okay, and just to add to that, I've even done it where if we're like fighting with the content or whatever, I will actually close the book and I will say, we're done. You're not doing it anymore today. And it kind of goes against everything in you, because how can we just not? And then what I'll get to from your kids are like, but I was fighting you. That happened. And they're like, you can't just, but aren't I supposed to do school? I'm like, yes, you are, but not today. Okay, fine. And I'm like, no, you've had your chance.
Happens to me.
And I'll put it away, and we'll end with the child kind of like, how dare you just take it away from me? I'm supposed to be fighting with you. It's a fantastic experience. Okay. You got to do it once or twice, and just take it away.
And the other thing to keep in mind is the reason our kids have so much respect for their teachers is because they're the authority that has taught them. And and so they have put this person in this particular category. I don't remember who it was that talked about if you're the person that teach your child something, then you're the authority on it, and anybody else can say anything and they'll be like, no, because I was taught this.
Yeah.
And so when my kids were in public school, I tried to like preemptively teach some of the really important core values of our family before the school taught certain things, because I wanted to be the authority. I wanted them to come back and say, well, actually, I heard at school this, but you taught me this, and then we could discuss. So because the experience that your son has had has been this other person teaching, now that's going to be you. So somebody else can come along and say X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and that's like one of the main reasons why we decided to go on this.
And then that elevates you to the authority in his mind.
Yeah.
At least that was my experience with my
Yeah, because you're like, they're spending, because I'm one of you who like miss my kids, you know, when they're like, they're spending all this time with these teachers, and what are they, you know, in the school holidays, I'm like, I love it, and then other friends are like, oh.
Do you know how many times I've heard a mom say, I just want to be with my kids? I was like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and even like some of the families who ended up having to keep their kids home through COVID, and they did quite a good job. And a huge amount of families that kept on homeschooling, it was because the mom said, I didn't think I could do it, but I could. I love my kids. I love having them around. And so like that is okay. Like if if that's your reason,
That is.
that's a legit reason to homeschool.
Yeah.
Do it, right?
Yes.
I-
Also say though, if you're the mom that's falling in the corner because you feel like this is where you're supposed to be, that's okay too.
That's exactly, so that, yeah.
I was like,
I got to grow in grace, and that wasn't the point. and so I think those are things where I think it's a surprising thing, but then when you have to lean into personal growth,
Yeah.
it's a little bit challenging, and it's
Yeah.
like, but I find you hear stories of successful home learners and people who are enjoying the experience and all that, and they're the ones who've leaned into their own personal growth, and the ones who are fighting themselves, or different women, they've had different experiences, or homeschool for a bit, put them back, whatever, and it depended on their lean in.
Yeah.
And then their lean into the issues or whatever, or their own things, or depend on the situation as well.
Yeah.
It's not all like not everything's cookie cutter, but
Yeah.
sometimes the fight is
Yeah.
like, well, this isn't like the kid just hit my disrespect button. It's not, they just offended me that they were disrespectful.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we just have to teach them respect, and we, at the home, we treat each other kindly.
Yeah.
And if you're not gonna treat me kindly, that's okay.
Yes.
But then there are consequences or whatever, and just like, anyway.
Yeah,
Lean
in that note, one of the best pieces of advice I've received is that as a mom, you have to be unflappable.
oh yeah.
Unflappable. Do not let a single feather be ruffled by your child. Unflappable.
Like your wings.
I think it's like a British
wings.
literature term. But yeah, and that doesn't mean like if they'll tell you something and it's terrifying. I something once about my boys in the neighbor came over and said, "Did you know our your boys were lighting a fire under the deck?" And like, I did not know that. I shall deal with it. So you practice it. But and your child will come to you when they're teenagers too, and they'll be telling you things like, "You're telling me." Absolutely have your freak out moment, just not in front of the child. So learn to be unflappable, but then yes, the other thing. To what you were saying, I can't remember. So anyway, any other questions?
Lean in.
Yeah, lean in. Yes.
Cost. What would I be looking at cost-wise, curriculum, extracurriculars, elementary age?
Less than private school. No. So that really depends on kind of how much you want to spend. I would suggest that set your budget and stay within it.
What's a good budget to start with for a newbie?
Well, there's lots of like curriculums that you can find online,
Yeah.
thrift store wise, Google,
Yeah.
in a Facebook local.
Yeah.
Use
Also depends if you
curriculum.
have funding from your school or not, like if
Yeah.
you're registered or enrolled.
Yeah, and then also when it comes to extracurricular, keep in mind that I know this might sound unkind and crazy, but extracurricular activities are a privilege. Okay, so you don't have to put your child into sports and horseback riding and swimming, and well, swimming is probably a necessity. It's not necessarily a luxury, but there's a lot of extracurricular that is a privilege.
Also, those are extra to regular school too. So
They
I
are.
would consider that budgeting for homeschool.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
That's a fair comment, right? So everyone has to pay extra for piano and for horseback riding and for skiing lessons and for, I don't know. But when it comes to like actual, what you need for your kids, first of all, go to the used markets, go to the secondhand markets, talk to your friends, see what's available, go to used curriculum fairs wherever you can. But then you can also get curriculums, even if you buy them new, that are non-consumables, right? So like a big thing, we have some science curriculums and they have student notebooks. So the students meant to read the text and then fill out the student notebook. But you don't have to buy a notebook. Did you guys know this? You don't have to buy a notebook. You could like literally give your child a piece of paper and say, take notes, write out verses, you know. And I actually believe that when you have your child create their own notebook from scratch, they're actually learning more, right? Because if you buy a $100 notebook, student notebook, and you have them fill it in, they're just filling it in. So I would even say that less money is a better education. And that doesn't help me out, so.
With extracurriculars though, there's a ton of, like all the things you mentioned before.
Yeah.
When the time is there. So out,
Yes.
classes are smaller, cost is
Yes.
significantly less.
Yes.
And honestly, like, I think the quality is the same as you would get going to dance class after school, or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a mandate